If you are in pharmaceuticals, you have to take a 25-year view because it takes 15 years usually, unless you're in generics, to develop something through a pipeline, and then you have to get a return. If you're in the oil industry or mining industry, you have to take a 20-year view because you have to know whether it's even worth drilling the mine. On the other hand, and also, there are many trends which are very obvious. Let me give you an example. There is a pensions crisis in Europe. But how many years have we known about that? For 30 years at least. Why? Because people stopped having babies. If people had carried on having babies normally, as in India, we would not have a pensions crisis. So the pensions crisis was created by parenting problems 30 years ago. It was very obvious. Here is another trend for those of you in telecom. I had my first IT startup company in 1978. My first computer ran with 32,000 characters of memory and was powerful enough to run word processing, Excel spreadsheet type activity, and to run a medical practice, medical record system on 32,000 characters of memory. Most of you have in your pocket millions of characters, and the software hardly works, and is slower than the stuff we had then, but that's another story. But in 1978, we knew that the power of the devices we had would go on doubling every 18 months, and that is exactly what has happened, give or take a week. We knew that the cost of telecom would fall towards zero around the world, and it's exactly what has happened. We knew that the price of flying would be likely to go on falling dramatically, and globalization was already there. In fact, you know, a lot is predictable, a lot more predictable than you might think. Even my grandmother was born in 1908 or something, and you know, she knew globalization because she knew actually the old empire was a form of globalization in a way. We had all kinds of global trading systems for 300 or 400 years. That's number one. She knew about global communication. Even in 1931, she could pick up the phone in London and talk to a friend in Delhi. I know she had to ask for a human being to patch the call, and it may take a few minutes, but she was able to talk at the speed of light around the world using electronic impulses. So a lot of things actually she knew about. She didn't know about wireless technology in a mobile phone, but she did know about wireless transmitters from a ship to the shore. She knew that those costs of those things were falling all the time. She could imagine a wireless world. And the internet itself, yes, but actually in 1979, I was already using a form of the internet and already using a form of speech recognition. 1979, on small computers. So although we think many of these things have only suddenly happened and were never able to be foreseen, I don't think that's really true. However, it is true that there's lots of uncertainty. And that's why if you ask Google about the future, they will say they don't know the future. If you ask YouTube the future, they will say they don't know the future. What they'll say is we experiment, we invest, and we allow the community to decide how things will be used. We play, we give lots of different opportunities. We innovate in more than one area. Remember me saying earlier, right at the start, in a rapidly changing world, you have to have more than one strategy. So Google has many strategies for its success. And they are all found on the beta areas of Google. And each one of those is an experiment. And they hope one or two of them will be successful. So I think we need to do both. Every company, every business unit here spends serious time thinking about the future. You have to. You're thinking about what your competitors are going to do tomorrow. You think about what other technologies are happening in other industries that you could bring into your own industry. You're thinking about whether you're going to win the war for talent. You're constantly thinking about generating the next layer of leadership. You are in the business of managing the future. That's what leadership is. And yet, we also, I agree, need to understand the uncertainty of it and build in all kinds of flexibilities in the process.